Hello again, I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. Today we're going to do an oil painting for our March 19th, 2014 oil painting class. And the scene that we've decided on today is a scene from a Tuscany, Italy countryside scene. And I've looked at a number of images from the area of Italy that we're talking about, and kind of settled on, created my own design here from some of the pictures I've seen. So we'll do that today, and hopefully you'll like it. We're going to paint on toned canvas today, 11 by 14 inch toned canvas. I have gray gesso on the canvas, and I've done my sketch here, as you may be able to see, in my typical charcoal white pencil, and hopefully I'll zoom in and you can get a good look at that. It's a little more detailed than some of the paintings we do, but that's primarily because we have this villa or building here in the middle that we're going to try to do justice to, and hopefully that will inspire you to paint along with us, and hopefully my students who are in the class on March 19th will get a chance to see this before class. So the paints we're using are the typical Bob Ross set. I'll go through those in one moment, tell you what they are, and the brush set also is a brush set from primarily Bob Ross. We use the painting knife that he has, a number 5 painting knife. I use this number 1 landscape brush, and the number 2 script liner, and the number 3 fan brush. And then I have added a couple of other brushes. I have a number 12 Bristle Bright from Dick Blick, and I have a number 10 Bristle Filbert from Dick Blick. And those are the primary brushes. And I also am going to probably use this half-inch Golden Taklon brush, which is primarily a watercolor brush, but for some of the fine details around the building, I will use this to get some nice sharp edges. Sharp edges are something are very hard to get with oil painting with some of the bristle brushes, because the bristles are so spread out that they don't give quite as sharp an edge as you get with other painting tools. So I will use that. So let me go quickly now. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. The photo that I used, really, I did a watercolor study. I may put that up and let you look at it. I've changed it slightly even from my watercolor study, and made the trees in the foreground a little smaller, and try to make it a nice looking scene with a lot of distance. So hopefully you can get that sketched and paint along with us. The paints today are the typical Bob Ross paints. I'll go through them quickly. Titanium white, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, alizarin crimson, sap green, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, and bright red. And I've added 2 other colors to the palette. I typically add this ultramarine violet from Grumbacher, but today I've also added another color that's called Naples yellow hue from Grumbacher, and it may help with some of the yellow scenes that I want to get in this painting, some of the coloring. As you can see, it's a slightly more white and a little bit more orange color in it than either of the yellows, any of the yellows that I have. So with that said, and zoomed in so you can see everything, I'm going to start with my liquid white and start putting in some of the sky area back here. Again, I used the modified Bob Ross method by selectively painting the liquid white on the canvas, so I preserve my sketch. As you know, Bob Ross typically covers the entire painting surface with liquid white for most of his paintings, or liquid clear in some cases. But when you want to preserve a sketch, in particular an architectural building of sorts like we have here, it's important to sort of leave that area open. So I'm going to hit that excuse me, right now, and that's really all the liquid white I want to put on for right now. I may put some more on in a few minutes, but right now I'm going to start with that. So for the sky, I'm going to try this little yellow ochre in the sky, see if I can get a interesting yellow with maybe this Indian or Naples yellow with a little yellow ochre, and just see if I can get some interesting yellow in this sky up here. These colors you have to be careful, because if you mix blue with them, you'll start getting green in the sky, and that's not necessarily what you want in the sky. But let's start with that and see what that looks like. Wipe out my brush. I'm not going to totally clean it, but I'm going to add in now just a little alizarin crimson, and pick up a little Prussian blue and start putting in some of this color over here, and sort of blend it together and see what kind of a nice soft sky we can get. Not too bad. Add a little more Prussian blue here. So some of this is experimentation. This is the first time I've painted this painting in oil, so you're seeing me go through it and struggle with it as I would whether I was on camera or not. The only thing I've done is done a watercolor study that gives me some idea of what kind of composition I want to have. That's not too bad. Let me see a little bit of this Indian yellow to brighten it up a little bit. Maybe that'll help. Indian yellow now, and here are some of these areas to sort of brighten that up just a little. Okay. Come back and pick up a little of this Prussian blue again. Gotta be careful, we're going to get green. Put in some darker blues in some spots. Come back with a little of alizarin and maybe touch in some areas here that give us a softer sky, a little more pastel look. I put some midnight black over here on the left corner to sort of darken it up in some areas. Give us a look of maybe some clouds and some texture up there. So we've got some blue, some lavender, some midnight black, this bright yellow here. Let me step back and look at that and see if I like it. And I'm going to come back and put a few clouds in there. The sky is not an important part of this painting, but you want it to be representative of the sky. Let me try a little titanium white. I still haven't washed out this brush. I'm going to put in a few clouds here and there. Just lighten up some areas. Typically use this X stroke where you make little X's on the canvas. And then sort of soften them and blend them in. Okay, maybe come back now and put a little more midnight black under there to highlight some shadows under the clouds maybe. Over here. All right, there's a little texture in the sky, not much. Let's leave it at that. Okay, our first layer of mountains in the back. I'm going to keep this brush still unwashed with thinner so that I'm not getting it too thinned out. So I've got a little bit of everything in this big brush now. I'm going to pick up my ultraviolet here for these mountains in the distance. And just a tad of white, touch of titanium white. And start back here with these mountains. Atmospheric perspective makes mountains in the distance look bluish or purplish. So that's what we want to represent here. So this set of mountains here is going to have a lot of purple. Takes more strokes of more paint because I don't have the underpainting white on here, the liquid white on here. And they also get bluish in the background. So let's put a little light blue in some of this area here. blue, and then we'll put a little gray in. Mix it up a little bit. Midnight black over here. Okay, step back a minute and look at that, see if I'm getting this soft distance mountains. Make sure you cover all that gray underpainting. From a value standpoint, this value is very similar to the underpainting gray that we have on there. Which is one reason why I put this underpainting gray on it, gray gesso, is to help with values. Okay. I still have some mountain area here that I want to cover. And at the bottom of these mountains, many times there's a layer of fog or mist, depending on the time of day. We would have some mistiness at the bottom. And so I'm going to see if I can get that by getting some more liquid white in my brush and using this technique that we've used many times of stippling into the area. You can either put liquid white on the canvas and then stipple over it to bring out the liquid white, or you can put the liquid white on last and go over it again. So we're just going to put in some some light misty areas here in the bottom. And we'll start blending that together. A bit too much maybe in some areas, but we're going to put another layer below that, so it's not a big deal. If we want it to be lighter, it has to be lighter than the mountain behind it, otherwise it's not going to show up. And if we leave this nice layer of white mist in here, we'll be able to put that next layer on top of it that's going to really stand out. So stippling is really just taking the brush and pounding it into the canvas vertically, which is what I'm doing here, and trying to get it sort of blended into the color that's above it. Okay. Now, hopefully that's coming through on canvas. That looks like a nice foggy layer back there. Okay, as we come forward with the next layer of mountains, I'm going to swap off my big brush for my I think I'm going to use this bright. It's a little bigger brush, a little broader, number 12 bright, and a little liquid white out here. I'm going to start mixing up a color that's sort of has some ochre in it and has some green in it, and some dark sienna in it, and we're going to start pulling these colors a little bit forward to represent the next layer here. So ochre, sap green, dark sienna for the darks. I've got these trees that are going to go up in the behind this house, behind this villa, and I want to make sure I know where those are going to go. A little more green in there maybe. Yeah. If I put blue in here over this yellow, I will end up getting more green, but I can also use sap green. So I'm going to pick up a little blue here and see if I can change the color of the hillside on the right in this area a little bit. Just putting that little bit of Prussian blue in there changed the look of this. These mountains need to come down to the roof line of this villa. A little bit of blue there, sap green, ochre. Come over here and start some more. So if I can make that go right along that line there is what I want to try to do. Some green. So we're just flipping in some interesting colors here. The roof of this is going to have a nice orange roof on this building. So we'll just paint down to the top of it, block it in, and okay. Over here we're going to put in a few more. I'm going to cover this canvas, make sure that we have this canvas covered over here. I don't want to leave any of it uncovered down to where the next row of trees are going to go, or bushes, or whatever they are over here. All right, am I getting some? Okay, now in this area, I want to do something similar. I want to have some more layers of mist in there, so I'm going to use this bright and just pick up some liquid white in this brush. And in some of these areas back here where these come together, represent some valleys back in there. There's another layer of fogginess. And put that on with the brush and then come back and stipple over it again to sort of blend it. So we're getting this interesting layer of fogginess back there. So it only looks foggy, but it helps us separate these two sets of mountain ranges. They're really more like hills than they are mountains, but nevertheless, we're going to put a few more in, like in here maybe. Helps us give the illusion of distance. So this is just liquid white. I'm just stippling over the top and making it nice and soft as I can with this brush. And then below it, we want to make sure we have a distinct line for the mountain that's in front of it, and it needs to be a little darker. So you see the contrast here we're making. Put in a little blue here. A little more blue. Okay. Something like this. And redo this edge. Should be fairly sharp. Okay. Now let's step back. Take a look. Okay. So we're getting a little bit of that nice looking distance in there. Okay. These hills in here are going to have a little, as they come forward, they get a little bit darker and start getting some more texture in them, more things that look like there's something going on out there in the distance. I'm going to have some trees in here anyway, so it doesn't have to be too specific. I do want to put on some small trees back here that sort of look like they're sort of sticking up on the top of this mountain back here. Not too dark. If you get them too dark, they'll come forward. You want to keep them about the same value, slightly darker, but about the same value as this hills that they're sitting on back there. And over here on the other side, I'll do something similar. Maybe like right in this area here. Very, very light, just little vertical strokes kind of pushing up, pulling down, making it look like there's some trees far off in the distance out there. And then as they come forward, you'll start seeing them get maybe slightly a little bigger, a little darker, like this, maybe some over here. Maybe even a few going up this mountain this way. Okay, I don't know how well that's coming across on the camera, but up close and top of this it looks pretty decent. Blend it out. Okay. All right, let's see, around this building here, all this is going to be sort of a greenish, different colors of green and ochre and Naples yellow maybe. Behind this building I want to leave room for my roof and then have some of this green come around, wrapping around in front. Okay, now, before I get too far gone, I want to go back and now put in some of these evergreen type trees. I think they're maybe cypress trees. See them in about every scene you look at for Tuscany. You'll see something like these. I'm going to get some my Prussian blue. I'm going to add a little bit of violet to that, and starting back here we're going to have some, see how thin I can make them. I know what I'm doing wrong. I got the wrong brush. I'm going to get my fan brush out. Get this fan brush and we'll be able to make these things much better, I believe, because we got a nice thin edge on this fan brush. Mixing some Prussian blue, some of my violet, a little bit of sap green in here. I've got a nice dark evergreen color. So this needs to have sort of a point on it. They have these points that they're very tall and very narrow. And they're all over the place. Most, you could hardly see a scene in Tuscany where you didn't see this type of evergreen tree. And I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe they're considered cypress trees. But I could be wrong. So they're different heights. Many of the times you'll see them and they're just all exactly perfectly aligned, all the same height, all the same width. If you've painted with me before, we don't like to paint things that are too repetitive. It's not the best type of painting rendering you can get. You sort of want to change things up a little bit. Nature can give us perfect triangles and perfect trees and circular things, square things, round things, whatever, but if we try to paint them that way, it looks kind of artificial, or doesn't look exactly right. Over here we got a few of these trees. Let me put a couple in over here. Change the color a little bit, get a little more of this lavender in it maybe. Come down to the top, stick above. Something like that. And we're going to have some other bushes and other trees and other things coming down over this way as well. But right now we'll leave it at that. Get this down far enough. Okay. And we've got combinations of these little things going on all over the place. So let's just put a few more spots in here and there to kind of break up some of these big areas that don't have too much going on. All right. Stop. Step back. Check it. All right. Okay. I like the way that's looking. It's sort of neglected my fan brush for a few paintings, so I want to try to get back into that thing and use it more. It really makes some nice it's a good brush for blending these horizontal areas and for making these trees. I'm just sort of painting now. I've got a little Naples yellow, a little Indian yellow, touch of this green in it, and just sort of laying in this sort of grassy areas back here, around behind this building. I'm painting around the building as much as I can get filled in here. A lot of greens, yellows. I'm pulling out this, picked up a little red right there by mistake, but it will turn orange if I put enough yellow in it, so let's do that. We'll put a few things. We got these other trees in the foreground, but I want to have some grassiness and colors behind it. So I'm just sort of laying in this whole area, block it in like this. Over here on this side is actually going to be a little brighter on this right side where the sun is hitting more on this side. We're going to darken this side down probably on the left side of the building eventually. Let's just throw in some rough background grasses and block it in. Fan brush is great for throwing this stuff in here. Okay. On the right side, I'm going to use a little ochre and Indian yellow over here. Sort of see if I can brighten it up a little bit. Down around this house. In here like this. Bring that color over. I don't want it to be all the same color on one side and not have that color repeated on the other side. So that's part of making a painting a little harmonious. bottom of this building here. I'm going to have some trees in there, some bushes. So, all right, let's just flick in some of this. Picked up a little more red in there. Okay, so that's starting to make sense. All right. Okay, just fill this in and get some of this done here. All right, that's going to need more work, but right now I'll stop with that. Clean out my brushes here. I think I'm going to start on this building now. And we need some nice orange colors for the roof. So I'm going to work on getting myself a little of that. I'm going to pull out my watercolor 1/2-inch Taklon brush. It's got a really sharp edge. It's made of nylon, so the solvents, the oil paint solvents are not going to hurt it. So I'm going to see if I can get some of this orange color here. I'm using cad yellow, bright red for one set of orange. I'm going to use my Naples yellow for another color of orange. I'll probably put a little ochre in that. So I'm getting here, if you can see on the palette, I'm mixing up a series of colors that are definitely have oranges in them. And I'll see what happens when I start up here. I want this edge to be fairly sharp, so I'm going to start. This brush has a nice, flat, really sharp, pointed edge on it, which is what I really want for this roof line and most of this building, actually. For any sort of an architectural rendering, they do have sharp edges. Lighten it up here. So there's one. Pick a little bit different color, a little bit darker color. If I want to darken this down, if I want to gray it down, if you remember the color wheel, what will we do to gray this down? Question. Anytime you have a red, you have an orange, you gray it down, you look at the opposite side of the color wheel, and across from red is green, and across the color wheel from orange is sort of a blue or violet. So a touch of green in some of these areas will gray that red down. Take a little sap green and put in here, and I will get a grayed down color. It may not be as evident right here, but this area of the building is in shadow, so we're going to have it a little grayer. But I want this to have to make sure that this edge of the roof is darker than what's behind it. And these roofs sometimes have this tile or tile roof that makes it have some junctions at the peaks. See what happens over here when I try this color. Needs to be redder. Okay. So now I have definitely two tones on that roof. You can see the right side is brighter and it's more in shadow on this side, which is the plan. I'll pick up all this violet over here. That will help gray it down. So if I want to gray some of this down, I will put all this violet in here, hopefully. Be able to see that. Okay, not too bad. Underneath these eaves, there's pick up some dark sienna on top of this brush and see if we can put in goes there, it goes here. Okay. There are some areas in there that don't have the red on it. I'm going to go back and get me some of that right now. Clean this brush out and get some more of this reddish orange color. Places where I missed the canvas here in some spots, so I'm going to go back and just touch it here and there, along here, same thing. And over here, it's a little lighter color, but okay. And we definitely have a little more of this. And we have areas along here that show this stone cap that goes over these. Corners or peaks. Okay, let's don't get too crazy with this. Spend a lot of time on this details, but this is the most detailed part of the painting, so it's not a bad thing to spend a little time here because you want this to stand out. That's where the eye should go to for the focal point. Okay, now the sides of this building. I'm going to pull out my Naples yellow here and see if I can get sort of this, I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Just a little bit of alizarin in with this Naples yellow. Those colors may not be perfectly analogous, but I'm going to see if I can get this bright side over here done. Just maybe pure Naples yellow. And pull it down. Okay, now I'm going to gray that down, so I'm adding my ultramarine violet to it. The front of the building is going to be in shadow, so I want it to be grayed down. So let's make it grayed down. So just blocking in here. Naples yellow, a little bit of this violet. Lighten it up just a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit too grayed down. It is a fairly sunny day out, so I'm going to make this totally dark. So we're getting some nice variation. Block it in. Okay, and then this other one over here is going to be probably a little darker, but we will see what happens over here. It's not darker yet. More violet. Pick up just a little of this midnight black. That has a purple color to it, so we want to make it distinguished from the front of the building. So that midnight black will help us do that. Okay, so now we have our building pretty well blocked in. Step back, take a look. Does it look like it's got the right shadowing? This area back here could be a little darker. Too dark. Lighten it up a little. Okay. Make a distinct edge over here on this left side. Okay, that's better. And so this little flat wash brush has given us the nice sharp edges we need here. Quite like that. Not quite aligned properly yet, but let's put it like this. Okay, there we go. Now, some areas over here might be a little lighter. A little bit of that light, a little bit of this white on there to sort of lighten it up a little bit. So maybe hitting on this side, give it a little more, give it a little more lightness there. Here we want to make sure we have a distinct difference. So all these contrasts are what make it look like it's something three-dimensional out there. If you make it all the same value, you're going to confuse the viewer and he won't know what he's looking at. There, that's the idea there. Now that dark background makes this roof line pop out even more. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, about 40 some minutes. All right. Now, I think I'm going to go in and put in a little darker gray set of doors here in this building here. Pick up a little bit of white, darken it down. Okay, that'll work for that. Take some of this and put in a few more couple of windows over here. Put enough paint on there. Something like that. In this front section we have several windows, as I recall. I think there's at least 3. I'm going to put one in like this. One over the door. Something like that. Trying to use the brushes we have here, half-inch brush. Put in a little shadow here, something like that. Maybe just a touch of a little shadow on the side of these. Okay. I think I even had a couple of windows in the lower section down here. Okay, and we have a door opening over here, darker. Like that, along with these 3 windows back here. Alright, so, alright, that's the rough look of our house, villa, country house, whatever you may want to call it. More dark in here. And I'm going to put a little bit of a roof over those. Time to get out my script liner now. Script liner is this very thin brush, and get some thinner on it to make this paint. I'm going to get some red paint because I'm going to make some roof-like areas over these doorways, like right in here. Something like that. Helps finish it off. We got a little one over here. Not quite as bright. Well, I can't get any on there for some reason. There we go. Well, I got this little brush. I'm going to get some brown and put in some downspouts on these guttering around these buildings. Most places I saw in my pictures had these little areas that look like this, have a little downspout that comes down. Like that. We have another one like right in here. Comes down the building. So these are just really some final touches that put on this building to spiffy it up a little bit. Okay. And we also have some of these pipe here. Okay, a lot of fine detail there, probably more than you want to take time to put on, but up close it helps finish this painting off a little bit, at least the building. There are a lot of these little tiles on this roof, so I'm trying to make that look like that. All along here, along the top. Probably way too much detail for this painting, but that's okay. I want that building to look like a nice little country house. All right, now filbert brush time. I'm going to put in some bushes and various things in front of this house and around it. A lot of greens, ochres, and so right in here we've got my filbert. I'm just sort of pushing up now some bushes, blue, Prussian blue, little sap green, some of the same colors I've used before. Put in some ochre in there. Around here. That, we'll come back and put a few other spots in there. So I'm just sort of scumbling along with this, making these bushes, pushing up, twisting. Over here, there's more over this way. I'm going to change the color a little bit, get some more ochres in this over here on the left side. Mixing some darker browns. Sap greens. This doesn't have to be too explicit over here on the left side. Just leave it abstract over here. Picking up these colors, putting in some shadows. I'm pulling in some black, maybe a little of this violet. I want this area to be sort of shaded because the sun's coming from the right and we want it to look darker over here. Which I think it does. Even in the front a little bit, there's some shadowing. And then it brightens up on the right side over here. A lot of okay, so we're just sort of painting ourselves to the foreground here, leaving room for some trees. I'm going to put in some more trees in this foreground and this path that goes back to this building. Step back, time check. Okay, we're doing pretty good. So we got nice colors of things going on here. Sap greens, a little Prussian blue, dark it up. abstract on both sides, both edges, very loose, just bushes, interesting little tree shapes maybe or something out here. Top of this filbert makes a nice little curved circular stroke that makes it look like there's little trees out there. Matter of fact, we can even make that more stronger by adding a few of our darks in here. Get some thinner on my script liner and just go in here, maybe flick in a few little tree trunks in some places. I got trees back here maybe. So I'm just making a little mini forest out of this. Not really a forest, but just a lot of little trees that could be there. Okay. Other thing I wanted to do with this brush, well, I got my thinner going, pick up some of these reds here. I'm going to put in some flowers in these green bushes here in the foreground. Again, just enough of my little script liner. Thin it down, get thinner on it. Put in some dots of red. Brighten that up. Maybe there's a few back in here somewhere. Even pick up some white, maybe get a little lighter color. Get it thin enough, it'll go on top, but you have to get it thin with the thinner. And get sort of this, maybe a pinkish color here in some spots. Something like this. Over here there might be a few standing out. Alright, very abstract again. These aren't, I'm not trying to paint specific flowers, but just dotted in. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. It's a little hard to see, but looks nice when you're up close. Alright, let's stop with that. I'm just putting some little dots in here. They look like flowers on top of these green bushes. Stop with that for now. All right. Let me get my big brush here and some white, some dark sienna. I'll start putting in this little path right in here. This path is a lot to cover, so I'm just using a big brush to do it with. That was dark sienna with a little white. A little darker in the foreground. We want to make it gradiated, darker to lighter as we go back. Put some shadows on this in a minute, but basically this is the outline of our path. We got some trees, other bigger trees in the foreground, but that's what I want to do with it, with this big brush right now. Okay, moving right along. Back to my filbert again. These trees in the foreground, I was trying to make them look like olive trees. The problem I'm having is getting the right color of green. with these colors on my palette. So I was going to try this Naples yellow to see if I could get an interesting green. I'm not sure if I'm going to get a green or gray. It's sort of a gray green. So I got Naples yellow. I put a little alizarin in it. Not alizarin, I'm sorry. Naples yellow with ultramarine violet and a little bit of Prussian blue and some white. Even put a little bit of sap green in it to green it up. So I've got this color that's sort of like olive trees. I'm going to see if it's going to look okay here. It's really light and may even be very hard to see on the camera. I don't know. But I'll lay it in here and we'll see what it looks like. So the trees sort of go back and back toward the back there. There may be even some other trees sitting around in some other areas here. I don't know. So that was Naples yellow, ultraviolet, a little bit of Prussian blue and white. So over here I got a similar set of trees. Just put it in like this. I'm painting over what's there. So it's kind of like you might be next to an olive tree grove here or something, I don't know. But we'll just put that in and see what it looks like. I may not like it. It's hard to see on the camera, but now we will darken that down and put some highlights in there. And I'm going to try just put in some midnight black into this and see what happens with to darken that gray down. See if we can get some shadows in here to help you think that these are little trees. And darken them on the left side because the sun is coming from the right. So let's put something like this. Fairly abstract. So if I can get three values in here, a dark value, a medium value, and a light value, maybe I can fool you into thinking these are three-dimensional trees. As long as the dark is not too dark and the light is not too light. Even put all this dark in some of these trees back here and maybe some of these back here. Just kind of giving an impression. We're not trying to paint every tree in the forest or on this whole set of trees, but you get away from it, it looks like it's a grouping of trees. Now if I put the brown trunks in, maybe I'll convince you those are olive trees. Maybe. Get my thinner brush out again and go up here with my browns. Van Dyke brown, dark sienna. And one thing I noticed in looking at olive trees is they always have a very rough bark on them, and some of them are very gnarled. And so I'm going to try to make these Look like they got big trunks on them that are been around for a while and beat up. This guy back here's got a little trunk on him. Some of these over here, put a little trunk in here. Something like this, put one here. And one over here. I've still got areas of the canvas over here I haven't covered, which I have to fix. All right, I've got one over here, big one. More thinner. More paint. All right, so from a distance, yeah, those look like olive trees, I guess. They look like it to me because I know what they're supposed to be. Okay, let's see if we can fill in some of this other grassy areas around here with these yellows and little greens and using quite a bit of all my yellows here today, including Naples yellow. It's usually better to paint the light colors first and then paint the dark over them, but I left areas of my canvas unpainted here, which I warned everyone about, and then I did it myself. But many artists don't paint things in the order that you think they ought to be painted in. Some people leave the skies till last. Go back and restate areas, putting in highlights. This area over here really is in shadow. Got some more, put in some shadows in here because the sun is shining on these trees, so let's darken it down a little bit. This light, this is dark. Okay. Maybe there's a little bit of shadow in by this guy. Some shadows over here, maybe some more shadows in this area. Okay, now we got to go get this side over here finished off a little bit. Picked up some red there by mistake, but that happens. So now I'm painting around these trees because I didn't cover all the canvas the first time. I may have to come back and redo those trunks a little bit, but no big deal. I'm just kind of filling in here with this filbert brush. Okay. Let's see, are we looking? That road takes the eye right into that house, which is what I wanted. Forcing the eye to move, which is always important to be able to do. Alright, and then here in this, I'm going to put in some darks. Actually, I want some darker areas on the right side because the sun, if there's any sort of shadow at all from this road, it should be on the right. Like this. I'm going to pick up some of my lavender, or violet rather, and I'm going to put in some shadows across this road this way from these trees. A little black in that one. So these lines going through like that, horizontal lines, yes, that's looking pretty decent. Darken down the foreground here a little more, maybe, right in here. Kind of force your eye to go back there to that house. I had even a little step of some kind back there that I want to put in very quickly with my fine brush. Okay, I think I'm going to stop with this and say that's enough. If I do too much more, I'll overwork it. One last look. Okay, I have a nice sunlit side. The only thing I might do is on that roof a little bit to lighten it up a little bit. It's not quite as light as I would like it. A little more titanium white mixed with this just put in a few more highlights on this roof here. Taking out some of those streaks, but it's all right. Okay. I think with that, I'm going to stop for now and say thank you once again for watching. I hope you're able to paint along with me on this, and until I see you again, I'll sign off for now, but if you're going to join my class on March 19th, I look forward to painting this with you again, and then say so long for now. Bye.